Good morning. I'm Stephen Leake. I'm an elder at First Presbyterian Church of Mesquite, Texas, and I'm also the teacher of the Discipleship Sunday School class there. Today we continue with our study of the Gospel of John. And I would like to remind you that our curriculum comes from the Daily Bible Study Series by Professor William Barclay, and that we're using the New Revised Standard Version of the Bible. We're in chapter 10, and John has just explained to us the Festival of Light, which has become now to be called the Festival of Hanukkah, which coincides with the Christian holiday of Christmas. Last week, we discussed that festival, the mechanics of it, and how it came to be. And today we're going to reread that passage, and we're going to discuss the meaning of that passage. So again, our passage is John 10, verses 22 through 28. At that time, the festival of the dedication took place in Jerusalem. It was winter, and Jesus was walking in the temple, in the portico of Solomon. So the Jews gathered around him and said to him, "How long will you keep us in suspense? If you are the Messiah, tell us plainly." Jesus answered, "I have told you, and you do not believe. The works I do in my Father's name testify to me. But you do not believe because you do not belong to my sheep. My sheep hear my voice. I know them, and they follow me. I give them eternal life, and they will never perish. No one will snatch them out of my hand." As Jesus walked in Solomon's porch, the Jews came to him and said, "How long are you going to keep us in suspense? Tell us plainly, are you or are you not God's promised one?" Now there were two attitudes behind that question. There were those who genuinely wished to know, but there were others who asked the question to trap Jesus into making a statement, which could be twisted either into a charge of blasphemy or into a charge of insurrection. Jesus' answer was that he had already told them who he was. True, he had not done so in so many words, for as John tells us, Jesus' two great claims had been made in private. To the Samaritan woman at the well, he had revealed himself as the Messiah, John 4:26. And to the man born blind, he had claimed to be the Son of God, John 9, verse 37. But there are some claims which do not need to be made in words, especially to an audience well qualified to perceive them. There were two things about Jesus which placed his claim beyond all doubt, whether he stated it in words or not. First, there were his deeds. It was Isaiah's dream of the golden age. Of that golden age, he wrote, "Then the eyes of the blind shall be opened, and the ears of the deaf unstopped. Then the lame man shall leap like a deer, and the tongue of the speechless sing for joy." That's from Isaiah 35, verses 5 and 6. Every one of Jesus' miracles was a claim that he, the Messiah, had come. Second, there were his words. Moses had forecast that God would raise up the prophet who must be listened to, Deuteronomy 18:15. The authoritative way with which Jesus spoke, the way which he regally canceled the old law and put his own teaching in its place, was a claim that God was speaking through him. His words and deeds were a continuous claim that he was the anointed one of God. But the great majority of the Jews had not accepted that claim. As we have seen in Palestine, the sheep knew their own shepherd's call and answered it. These Jews were not of Jesus' flock. In the fourth gospel, there's a doctrine of predestination. That is, things were happening as God meant them to happen. John is really saying that these Jews were predestined not to follow Jesus. Somehow or other, the whole New Testament keeps two opposite ideas in balance. The fact that everything happens within the purposes of God, and yet in such a way that human free will is responsible. These people had made themselves such that they were predestined not to accept Jesus. And yet, as John sees it, that does not make them any less responsible for the condemnation which follows. But though most did not accept Jesus, some did, and to them Jesus promised three things. First, he promised eternal life. He promised that if they accepted him as Master and Lord, all the littleness of earthly life would be gone. I love that phrase, all the littleness, because I always worry about things on Monday, and now on Tuesday, they're just not that important. I'm sure that happens to you too. In its place, they would know the splendor and the magnificence of God. Second, he promised them that life would know no end. Death would not be the end, but the beginning. They would know the glory of indestructible life. Third, he promised them a life that was secure. Nothing would snatch them from his hand. This would not mean that they would be saved from sorrow or from suffering or from death. But in the sorest moment and the darkest hour, they would still be conscious of the everlasting arms underneath and about them. Even in a world crashing in disaster, they would know the serenity of God. Our next two verses continue with those thoughts, verses 29 and 30. What my Father has given me is greater than all else, and no one can snatch it out of the Father's hand. The Father and I are one. This passage shows at one and the same time the tremendous trust and the tremendous claim of Jesus. His trust was something which traced everything back to God. He has just been speaking about his sheep and his flock. He has just been saying that no one will ever snatch his own from his hand, that he is the shepherd who will keep the sheep safe forever. At first sight, and if he had stopped there, it would have seemed that Jesus was putting his trust in his own power. But now we see the other side of it. It is the Father who gave him his sheep. Both he and his sheep are in his Father's hand. Jesus was so sure of himself because he was so sure of God. His attitude to life was not self-confidence, but God-confidence. He was secure not in his own power, but in God's power. He was so certain of the ultimate safety and ultimate victory, not because he claimed all power to be his, but because he assigned all power to God. Now we come to the supreme claim. I and the Father are one. And what did Jesus mean by that? Well, if we go to the Bible for interpretation, we find that it is so simple that anyone can grasp it. Let us turn to the 17th chapter of this gospel, which tells of the prayer of Jesus for his followers before he went to his death. Holy Father, protect them in your name that you have given me, that they may be one as we are one. That from John 17, verse 11. Jesus perceived of the unity of Christian with Christian as the same as his unity with God. In the same passage, he goes on, I ask not only on behalf of these, but also on behalf of those who believe in me through their word, that they may all be one. Jesus is saying with simplicity and clarity that the purpose of the Christian life is that Christians should be one as he and his Father are one. And what is the unity which should exist between Christians? The secret is love. Jesus said, I give you a new commandment, that you love one another. Just as I have loved you, you should also love one another. That's coming up in John 13:34. And here is the essence of the matter. The bond of unity is love, and the proof of love is obedience. Jesus' unity with God is a unity of perfect love, issuing in perfect obedience. Christians are one with one another when they are bound by love and obey the words of Christ. Thank you for joining me again today. God bless each and every one of you.